We're all in business for a reason. The problem that so many small business owners have is that they go in 10 million different directions, not really sure which way to go. Listen as your team of experts, Jennifer Glass, Daniel McCraine, and Patricia Reszetylo, go through what you need in your business to really make it stand out and benefit you. Because it's the bottom line that matters.
Hello and welcome to another episode of It's the Bottom Line That Matters podcast, where we are dedicated to your success. If this is the first time listening, thank you very much for checking us out. If you are a current listener or a longtime listener, thank you so much for listening and continuing to support us. We really appreciate it. On our show today, we are going to be talking about mini acquisitions. Does it make sense to help you grow your business? Is it something that you want to think about doing for your own business? And are there any kinds of ideas that you may want to be paying attention to if you do decide to ultimately acquire another entity to help you grow your business? As I mentioned in our last episode, I was talking about potentially buying a mastermind from a good friend of mine. And we know that Daniel has purchased several other businesses for his own business, and he's mentioned them here on the podcast as well. And Patricia has looked at a couple of acquisitions of her own. So when it comes down to the acquisition game, it is something that we all have a little bit of familiarity with in terms of the process. But Daniel, Patricia, let me ask you as I bring the two of you in on the conversation. If we're thinking about mini acquisitions, we're not talking about buying a whole other company to help you grow, or if it is buying another company, it's not like a multi-million dollar deal, except of course if you're like $1 billion business and you're buying a couple $1 million business, but we're not talking about those kinds of deals right now. So let me ask both of you though, tell us a little more about your own experience first with the acquisitions again. So that way it'll help us lay a little bit more of that foundation.
So first I want to clear this up before we go on. She's saying mini as in miniature, not mini as in many.
Yes, mini as in
And
miniature.
I say that because I was getting tangled up in it. So all right, go ahead, Daniel. You have a thought.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, good. Yeah, so I can definitely answer the question, but it also occurs to me, Jennifer, yes, as I've talked about some of the acquisitions that I've had, I haven't name dropped enough here. I should probably name drop some of the companies that I've purchased and services and products, but we can get to that. So some of the things that I've done, here's something you may not actually think of as buying a business, but I think this kind of fits into this whole idea of small acquisitions in the term mini, meaning small in this case. But if you had the opportunity to take over a Facebook group or a LinkedIn group, some kind of online group, that could still be considered an acquisition. And so if you found something that was related to your business, that could be your own fishing pond, so to speak, then maybe finding a way to take over that group could be something that you could do. Of course, do watch out for terms of service of the platform that you're working on, right, Jennifer?
I
I'm
was
sure
just
you'll bring
going
that
to
up.
say that.
So when I say acquisition, I mean, yeah, if you had the opportunity to become the admin of such a group. So some other things you could do, but that being the case, think about other things that could happen online. What if you've got a product line or even service and you want to expand a little bit? Can you consider maybe e-commerce stores? Some of these e-commerce stores can be very cheap in terms of purchasing businesses, but if they've got the eyes on the store already, everything's already set up and ready to go, that could be something related that could be really good to look into. But back to the question, other things that I have done. So It's sort of related to an acquisition. I set up a licensing deal with a financing platform. We'll go ahead and name drop here because it's not my company, but we'll promote it. It's Woje, Woje. So if you check out wojeinc.com. But I've got a licensing deal that works very nicely with my core services and then also something that helps my clients too. So that's a service that I can provide to my clients so they can provide that service to their clients. But that's sort of an acquisition. And in terms of size, that is a small acquisition. So I've licensed this service to add on to my services. So there's a few ideas.
Thank you. And Patricia, from your side, again, we've spoken about some of the ways that you've looked at acquiring opportunities as well. Can you share a little
Yeah,
more from there too?
sure, sure. So one thing that I did was I looked at an e-com site that was in a niche that I have interest in. It didn't end up merging well with my other actual things that I was doing, but I also didn't have the financial resources that were going to be required for it. So there was more than just buying the website and the information on how to run it. It was, it's an e-com site. I would have had to promote it somehow. Uh, Ads, social, whatever, it had to be promoted. And it was not operational yet. So it would have had to been just a complete startup. So I was not ready to do that, and I didn't do it. Other
Right.
things that I have looked at. Yeah. Other
There's
things that I have
always
looked
different
at.
things that you got to pay attention to.
Yeah, you really have to dig into it. You have to be either really brutally honest with yourself or have somebody who can be brutally honest with you. Um, and that's always a two-edged sword. But um, the other opportunity that comes to mind was to buy a restaurant. Now, when we started looking at this restaurant, it was still operational. And by the time we got around to putting in an offer and trying to negotiate with the seller, he had ceased operations. Um, but it was set up, it was ready to go. It wouldn't have taken a heck of a lot to launch it off, other than getting people in there and making sure that our menu was, just, I mean, there's 1,001 details still, but it wouldn't have taken as much. And yes, we ended up not being able to acquire that, and I'm still kicking myself a little bit. On the other hand, it was not all a loss. I learned a lot of good lessons from that experience. And, I've taken as much of it to heart as possibly can at this point, and just applying what I can, as we're taking over the next property. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So let me ask, because in the introduction to this episode, I did say a couple of points that you need to be thinking about when you start looking at a potential acquisition of any size in the business. And we're talking about small acquisitions as far as we're talking on this episode. So, Daniel, let me ask you, because you've got significantly more experience in these acquisitions. Some of them you ended up selling back,
Hmm.
even like your text messaging solution that you had at one point, or the voicemail program. So let me ask you, when you're looking at a potential acquisition, what are the things that you are looking at in terms of your current business and the acquiring or the acquired uh, business? And how do you see how that meshes in with your existing processes, your existing business, and if there's any kinds of issues that may arise by that acquisition?
Yeah, it's a great question, Jennifer. So for myself, what I do is I take a look at my current business because I'm mostly focused on trying to grow and expand my business. I'm not trying to get into new industries and new territories, although I kind of shot myself in the foot with the most recent acquisition. But I'm looking at my business, trying to figure out where do I have gaps? How do I want to grow this area of my business? How can I expand this? How can I make this work better? And so you've got a couple of options. You can either figure out how to build that yourself, or if you could buy it on the marketplace and then use it in your business, maybe that could end up being an easier way to grow your business. And so with Woji, that was one of the things I looked at. I know that I will need to provide financing to my clients. Here's this licensing deal that I can use that fits very nicely in my business, what I have going on. When I took over the Facebook group, Business Ideas for Beginners, I'm dropping names here. If you want to check out Business Ideas for Beginners group on Facebook, then I needed exposure. I needed to be able to reach out to people who potentially could be clients. And this opportunity presented itself. The admin of that group was tired of running it, didn't want to deal with it, and was happy to let me take over. So it was a great opportunity. So I acquired a prospecting base, I guess is the right way to put that. With Field Built CRM that I purchased over the summer. That one just came along, but I was of the mindset, I was already thinking, hey, I need to use a CRM in my business. I need to start evaluating which one am I going to use in my business? What subscription do I want to have? What tool do I want to subscribe to? And this opportunity came along to buy the CRM, the whole thing, the source code. And in terms of small acquisitions, the price was definitely right. In terms of the lift to get it up and running and off the ground and be a viable revenue source, a lot more than I knew how to chew that I could take on. So in that respect, it was a mini acquisition, but in terms of the effort, not quite so much. But it was a gap in my business. I needed it for myself and thought, well, if I can make it be a revenue stream at the same time, so much the better. So those are things that I look at for my business is where do I have a gap and how can I fill that? Could an acquisition be the way to fill that gap? It could be people-based, it could be process, it could be tool, but any kind of gap that you have in your business, just consider whether an acquisition might be an easier way to fill that gap.
Right. Thank you. And Patricia, when you're looking at the properties that you're looking at potentially acquiring and the businesses that are operating, are there any specific points that you're looking at to make sure that the project is going to make sense with the overall investment guidelines and philosophy that you're trying to work with?
Yeah, that's a really good point and a really important point. So the property that we're looking at right now is not nearly as set up as the previous one that I had mentioned. We're going to have to set it up. I mean, the building is nice enough, but I mean, there's no tables and chairs and silverware and dinnerware and even inventory like the previous one had. And this one comes with a bunch of construction that we actually have to do with it before we can really use it. But part of my consideration was what kind of shape is the building in? Where is it located? Because as a restaurant, location does have some value. Not nearly as much as people would like you to think it does sometimes, but there's value to it. How is it strategically located? What can we do to fix it, make it a little more strategic? I was also looking for a property that had at least a few acres on it, and that was part of why I looked at this one. I am planning on putting up a micro resort, maybe a test resort, and seeing where we can expand from there. So those, I looked at a bunch of locations, and this seemed to be, it seemed to check enough of the boxes that it was going to have value. So that's what
Absolutely.
we're working on now.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can say on my side with the mastermind as an example that I was looking at purchasing, again, it feeds directly into my business. It matched a business line I was already doing. And so it makes complete sense to add that kind of opportunity where appropriate. The other thing I will say, and Daniel, you did mention in a way the idea, I believe, in the buy partner build model. So if there's something I want, I will look at purchasing it. If I can't purchase it, I will partner with somebody to do it. And if I can't do that, then go ahead and build it. And I did that when I first started my coaching business because I needed to have an on-demand coaching platform. And so it was really easy for me to say, okay, fine. I now have a platform that I purchased to have access to this platform. And so it's that kind of an idea. What are we doing that's going to allow us to be operating our business in whatever kind of model we may be looking at? So as we wrap up our conversation, again, it's really important. Understand what kind of acquisition it is that you're looking at picking up. How is it going to connect? As Daniel was saying, is it going to fit into a particular line? Is it going to grow your business? And I want you to think about a jigsaw puzzle, right? Is this acquisition going to be another piece in your overall puzzle? Or is it going to be a piece that does not fit easily and you have to cut off a couple of sides in order to make it fit? If you have to cut off too many sides, it's probably not going to be the right kind of fit. If all you have to do is cut a tiny sliver off, then it may be a good opportunity to fit into your overall business because you'll see how it can still fit and fit the hole that you need in your business. On that note, this has been another episode of It's the Bottom Line That Matters. And until next time, here is to your success. Thanks so much for listening to another amazing episode of It's the Bottom Line That Matters podcast. We're all about helping the small business community grow and reaching as many people as we can. And the algorithms on the podcast programs love reviews. So if you loved what you just heard, consider leaving us a review. And even if you don't, I'm sure you already did, but consider sharing our episodes and our podcast with your friends and colleagues. Sharing is caring, and here's to your success. Thanks so much, and have a wonderful day.
It's the bottom line that matters.